Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I appreciate that Friday lunchtime is probably not the most convenient time for watching a live webinar, particularly in the middle of what I'm sure is another busy pharmacy day. Although we are, of course, getting something out here now so that many more people can watch it on catch up. First of all, I want to say thank you to our sponsors, to Lifebuoy, for sponsoring all the conference events this week. We're delighted to be working with you. And as I said, we wanted to get something out there very quickly, as soon as possible, really, on the topic we're talking about this lunchtime. It is both a really important topic and it's really urgent. So today is just a starter for 10, really, on the situation with claiming back your COVID costs. Before we get into the detail of that, I want to probably just start by saying that on behalf of the NPA, it is good that the government has finally listened to our constant and repeated appeals for a decision on how COVID costs will be repaid to pharmacies in England. If I'm honest, I don't think it should have taken anything like as long as it has to get to this point. Nor, I think, should it have taken battle buses and petitions and newspaper campaigns and even protests by NPA members to get to a point where government agrees to cover the costs that have been expended. And I do want to recognise that as part of this lobbying and campaigning, we should acknowledge all the support of many MPs and peers who've backed us in Parliament, including, of course, Jackie Doyle-Price as the chair of the all-party pharmacy group. So now there has been agreement that the clock is ticking. And for contractors, that's all about claiming back your costs in the next 6 weeks. In fact, as we're recording this today on Friday, it's almost the first week of those 6 has almost gone by. So we're down to just over 5 weeks to make this claim. So I'm absolutely delighted that Simon Jukes, the chief executive of PSNC, has found the time, literally overnight, to record a short 10-minute introduction for us. I know from Simon and from colleagues, this has been a really busy week for PSNC. They're still involved in ongoing negotiations around year 3, and they've had a committee meeting. So I am really, really grateful that Simon has found the time to do this for us. It's fantastic. So Simon, could you play the video from Simon Jukes, please?
Hello, my name's Simon Jukes. I'm Chief Executive of PSNC. Thank you to the NPA for inviting me to say a few words about COVID costs and cost recovery. Everything I'm going to say is on the PSNC website under our FAQs on this topic. That will be added to over the coming days and weeks. And of course, in addition, we are PSNC holding a number of contractor webinars as we get further details and further clarity from the Department of Health and Social Care on a number of the issues that we're going to talk about tonight. So let me just say where we are right now and how we got here briefly. It's been a tortuous process. It's taken us a year plus to get to a point where we have an offer from the Department of Health and from Treasury on our COVID costs. A year ago, the PSNC committee rejected an offer from the department. That offer was a restricted COVID costs offer. It was only for 3 months, March to May 2020. It was capped. And it was offset against things such as the retail, hospitality and leisure grant. That just could not happen. We could not accept it. The committee quite rightly rejected it. Months of wrangling took place after that, not just between PSNC and the department, but also internally between the department, Treasury and other departments. The NPA and other bodies, the NPA in particular, did some sterling work in engaging with the media, with politicians, lobbying to try and get the COVID costs written off against that £370 million loan. We were never going to get that, but it was a really strong narrative. And I think what we have ended up with, which is effectively a 13-month period through which we can claim with an unlimited claim, i.e. no cap, with the abandonment of the offset against retail, hospitality and leisure grants, is really strong. It's not exactly what we wanted, but it's as good as we're going to get. The NPA have sent me a number of questions. I'm going to address those as best I can. It is a slightly changing landscape. There will be further information that comes out from PSNC over the next few days. But really the message from me, if nothing else, is that every contractor has to claim. This is really, really important. We've got £370 million that's going to be reclaimed from our sector from the 1st of October in 6 instalments through to March 22. It is up to every contractor to put in their best possible claim for every single COVID cost, because if we don't, effectively, we are subsidising the Treasury over the pandemic. And as we know, our sector cannot stomach any more financial cuts. So I'm going to look at some of the questions that the NPA have sent me, and I will do my best to answer them. One is about the window for submitting claims and why is it so short? Well, it's 6 weeks. Actually, the initial offer that we got a few weeks ago from the department was 5 weeks. And we pushed back on that because even the GPs got 6 weeks for their COVID costs claims. 6 weeks is the maximum. It allows us time to put in those claims. I appreciate that that's still going to be a tall ask for some contractors, but it also means there's enough time for the claim to be processed and then of course paid on the 1st of October. Second question is about funding cap, and if there is no funding cap, why is the totality of the claims being submitted to government, why is that going to have government approval? Well, this is all about the Treasury and their duty to protect the public purse. Ultimately, they need to agree that the total is going to be paid out. The cap, there is no cap, there will not be a cap, but it does mean that if our total claims are well in excess of the loan, then of course there are going to be some budgetary issues for Treasury, and they would need to look at that. The converse, of course, is true, and that is that if the claims that we put in as a sector are substantially less than 370 million, then quite rightly PSNC and the department will want to have a discussion about what the impact of paying back that 370 million pounds is going to be on our sector as a whole. So it works both ways. Third question is about information regarding evidence. It's saying here that the NPA is saying that there appears to be insufficient information regarding evidence that can be claimed across the 4 categories. When will more detailed information be available? Well, we hope PSNC to be able to provide more information to contractors over the coming days, but there is inbuilt ambiguity into this. We want, and the department wants, and Treasury has agreed that we should be imaginative in providing evidence to substantiate COVID costs. They accept that not everyone will have invoices, not everyone will have timesheets, and so look across the board at what else can be used to substantiate and evidence your COVID cost claim. So that ambiguity, that flexibility should work in the contractor's favour. Fourth question is about what type of evidence will be acceptable to support the claim. What type of direct informal pieces of evidence? Well, I think we'll say more about this at our webinars over the next week. But as I said, I think we need to be as flexible as we can And if that data that we can provide, that you can provide as a contractor to substantiate your claim exists, then it should be used. And I don't think that we should narrow ourselves to some of the more traditional invoices and paper-based evidence type documentation. Fifth question, in the PSNC FAQs it mentions that although the department will not have time to verify every claim, any outliers will be scrutinised. Can you provide any further information on what this is? I can't because the department, unsurprisingly, have not told us what their parameters are and what, therefore, an outlier will look like. That said, I think that, unsurprisingly, I think that contractors will need to be careful about claims that are way in excess of what they received as a COVID loan, for example. But I go back to saying what I said earlier, which is if you have legitimate COVID claims that can be evidenced, then you should claim them because it is your money and you are due those costs. Question 6, why can't people claim their own time for making these claims? They were not advised in advance of this requirement, and this is an additional piece of work. This is a really good point, one that we pressed the department and Treasury on a number of times. Treasury would not wear it at all. They refused to allow us to claim for the time that it was going to take to make the claim. It was a point of principle for them, and they would not be budged. But it's a good point, and one personally that I think we should have been allowed. The final question: as the recovery of the uplift to advance payments may affect cash flow for pharmacy contractors, can the repayment period be extended beyond 6 months? Well, as I've said, we will be taking stock as soon as all those claims are in. We'll be talking to the Department of Health and Social Care, NHS BSA. We'll see the totality of the claims that have been made. And if it is substantially less than that £370 million, we will be pushing hard for a longer payback period, because clearly the cash flow and the impact on the sector will be substantial. Thank you for your time, for listening. I hope you have a good session on this topic, and it'll be one certainly that PSNC will be returning to in the next couple of days.
Thank you, Simon, so much for recording that. I'm joined now by two of my colleagues. I'm joined by Anil Sharma, a contractor and, of course, an NPA board member, and actually also Anil is a PSNC committee member. And also alongside me this afternoon is Jasmine Shah, Head of Advice and Support here at the NPA. Good afternoon, Anil and Jasmine.
Good afternoon, Mark.
Hi, good afternoon, Mark.
Anil, first of all, can I come to you? And I appreciate you've only just had the chance to see Simon's input there, but and also thank you for finding time to join us. I know how busy you are with the business at the moment. Can I ask you first of all, what's your overall view of this agreement that PSNC has managed to reach with government?
So my overall view is that I'm quite pleased with this agreement. The main reasons I'm saying that is essentially the original offer was only for 120 million, which is less than a third of the 370 million advance payment, and it was capped, which would have automatically meant that each of our members would have had to return 2/3 of their advance payment without having the opportunity to claim it. The original payment was based on a 3 months period, and now this offer is based on a 13-month period, and it's uncapped as well. And it also includes a wider range of costs, like non-staff costs, which were not included in the original offer. The original offer also took account for retail grants and we know that quite a few of our members probably didn't claim those retail grants, so they wouldn't have benefited. The only downside is, as an independent contractor, it's more work to do to claim the monies in a time when we are very short of time with various constraints on our time, like we are doing the CPAP assessment as well at the moment, and the summer's coming up, so it's hard to find locums at this point in time. And so it's a very busy next 5-6 weeks for myself, and I'm sure for most of our members. But overall, I'm happier with it.
Thank you, Anil. That's really, really helpful. And as you say, it's a very short window to make the claim now. So could I ask you, in this first week of that period, what have you been doing as a contractor to get ready to claim?
So the first thing I did was I basically tried to calculate the exact amount of the advance payment I was paid, which is quite difficult to do. But I managed to obtain some letters from PPD or NHS BSA that showed the exact amount I was paid for each of my pharmacies, and I could marry them up also with the payments with my bank statement. So most of our members will probably not get paper statements. We'll probably get them via the portal, which is harder to decipher what payments have been made. And I would suggest maybe ringing NHS BSA and asking for paper statements of the advance payments, because they have got those. I'm not too sure if they've sent them out to everyone. I got mine automatically, and I know some members have got them automatically and some had to ring them. But the other way of working out exactly how much you got is by just looking in your bank statement, because it's separate payments on the 1st of April, 1st of May, 1st of June, and the 1st of July. And they'll show it as a separate payment from NHS BSA hosted. And that's different to the other payments you get monthly for your prescriptions. And then you can just add them up, and that's your total advance payment. I think that's critical to know exactly how much you've got paid first. And the next thing I did after that is I emailed my accountant with all the various costs that I've incurred during this pandemic period. Things like premises costs. I know we've been paid for PPE already, so we can't claim for that. But the COVID screens, we were only paid £300. And in my circumstance, most of them were over £1,000 because I have quite long counters. So that's an invoice that, I can claim against. Then we spent money on sanitizer stations, on cleaning materials, on stationery, on printing signs to tell people not to come in. So all those things are making the premises secure for COVID, and they can be claimed against. I then bought additional IT equipment and subscribed to Zoom and Teams, and those are practical things, where we've got invoices that we can claim against. So I'm really doing a fact-finding mission with my accountant to try and locate as many invoices in this first week as I can. The next thing I've been working with my accountant is to work on how the additional staff costs we've incurred during this COVID period, because we had to employ more staff, especially during the initial 3 to 4 months. And after that, we still kept most of the staff for various duties related to the pandemic. Because our business, like most of our members' businesses, will have changed from being, instead of people coming in, more deliveries and things like that. So a lot more practical costs in the pharmacy to get those deliveries ready. And then my next plan is this coming week is to work out how many additional hours myself and my wife Dita, who's a pharmacist and an IP, actually worked with our family members during the COVID period. And luckily we have a very old-fashioned paper diary where we wrote exactly what hours we worked each day, just for our own benefit. And we also have an Excel spreadsheet where we put most of the hours on. And finally, if none of our members have that, most of us will have probably been logged in on our PMR systems as a responsible pharmacist, and we can print out those logs. And that's another tool that we're using as well to work out all the additional hours that we've spent, because as contractors and owners of our business, we haven't billed our business for that, but we now have the opportunity to claim that, back through this process. So, and the final thing, which I'm going to try and do next week if I get a chance, is look at the emails that we sent to our local area team to notify them when we had to close for infection control purposes. Being independent contractors, we hardly closed. So, I don't think we will have, closed for 2 weeks, but there are hours when we had to close because someone walked in who was COVID positive. And so we had to close for 2-3 hours to clean all the premises. So we obviously have the emails where we notify the area team. So we'll be looking at all those as well and tallying up all those hours. So my plan is just for this week and next week is just to get all the information and then and log on to the PSNC webinar on Wednesday to see exactly what evidence I need, because that has not been clarified yet.
That's really, really helpful practical advice, Anil. Thank you so much for that. And maybe just to finish off there, could you, you're obviously talking to contractors all the time in your area and in other places around England. What are there any questions you want to highlight today that you've been hearing from other contractors that you might want to raise?
The most common question that I've been asked is, by most of contractors, independent contractors, is, they've worked extra hours. Can they claim for those extra hours? And a lot of them are worried that they haven't already accounted for them in their previous year's accounts. But you can claim for them. That is allowed, even though you haven't put it through your accounts. You can do a backdated invoice, and as long as it's realistic. And in my case, we did a lot more hours in the first 3-4 months than the other period of time. And then we did have a peak again from October to December, where we did quite a few hours. And so, that is allowed. The other question I've been asked by some members is, what rate of pay are you going to claim? Are you going to claim as a locum rate of pay, or as a contractor, your time is worth more? So are you going to claim, a higher rate of pay? Now, to be honest, that is a really difficult question to answer right now. And nothing's been agreed with NHS England on the rate of pay. So my answer to that has been, to any contractor that's asked me, is, generally as owners of a business, time is more valuable. So as long as you can evidence why your time is more valuable, then, and you can prove it to NHS England if, or if they ask you for the evidence, because only the outliers will be asked for evidence. But if you're asked for evidence, as long as you can prove it, then, see what you can claim and be, but be reasonable. However, on the other side, as Simon suggested, we do need to make the most of the claims process as possible for our own benefit as, contractors, we've spent the money, and secondly, for the integrity of the profession. And that's a very important point. So, and they're the most common things I've been asked, to be honest.
That's really helpful, Anil, and I'm guessing that both PSNC and ourselves will on that last point about what rates of pay to use. That's something that I'm sure there'll be some guidance and advice coming on over the next few weeks as well. Can I move on to Jasmine then? Jasmine, you're going to summarise, I think, for us what are the immediate actions that we're suggesting that members might take, and that'll help round off the webinar today.
Yes, thank you, Mark. And I think Anil has also succinctly covered some of the key steps we would advise as well. So if I can just summarize it all together for the two separate aspects. The first aspect obviously is the amount of money that will be recovered over the course of 6 months for the uplifted advance payments that were received last year. So the key step there, first of all, is to determine exactly how much monies were received by the pharmacy on an individual F code basis, over the course of the 4 months from April, May, June, July last year. Once you have the 4 figures, effectively add them all up to get the total amount of uplift that the pharmacy received, and then as a means of figuring out a monthly repayment, just divide it by 6, which is a very basic way of looking at it, and that would be the amount on average you would have to pay back from 1st October onwards. I know Simon covered in his video about looking at the cash flow, and there isn't an immediate answer at the moment about whether the deadline would be extended beyond 6 months. So it'd be a case of watch the space. But I think members should be prepared for the fact that they would have to repay over the 6-month period, most likely, unless we hear otherwise at a later date. So that's the first thing. And I think Anil has given some very useful suggestions as well, that some members would have received a letter from NHS PSA in the last few days, giving them the information quite readily. If you haven't, then please do contact the NHS PSA. But also look at the bank statements where, as Anil has mentioned, the actual uplifted amount is stated separately on it from your other payments. So that will also give you a cross-check for it effectively to make sure that, even if you've received a letter, that it's correct, and you can cross-check it as well. If there's any discrepancies or doubts, please contact the NHS PSA, essentially. So that's for the first part of this. For the actual claiming COVID-related costs itself, so number one action also would be to look at the NHS PSA website, download a copy of the claims form, which is available there. It is in an Excel spreadsheet format. There are some guidance notes under the categories 1, 2, 3, as well as under category 4, which is pharmacy closures. So have a good look at it to ensure that you're familiar with how to complete that form and what sort of information you'll be required. It should be noted that there is only one claim form. So whether it's a single pharmacy you have in your business or you have multiple pharmacies in your business, one claim form is to be used across the board, which is why it's really important that the F code column is filled in very accurately to ensure that if you have more than one pharmacy, that you're putting the right costs against the right F code that you're claiming for, and not to pull them all into one F code effectively as a business, because that could cause some problems potentially later down the line. So that's quite important. Also, as Anil has mentioned, to say that there was some monies paid already, the £300 to make the premises COVID secure. So when the COVID secure measures costs are added in or put in the claim form, make sure to deduct £300 from it, because you don't want to claim for it again. Also ensure that the PPE costs are not added in, because that was already provided for. So those are the key things: is familiarize yourself with the claim form and so that you know what you need to complete. PSNC are running 2 workshops where we are expecting more detailed information to be provided, especially on the types of evidence that can be used. So it's really important to sign up and attend those workshops. The first one is this Wednesday, the 14th of July at 7:30 in the evening, and that will be really useful for members to attend. And then number 4, we're looking also at make sure to read the drug tariff determination, which is issued again on the NHS BSA website, which gives a little bit more information at this stage on the 4 categories of claims. And it tells you what can be included in the claim and what is excluded from the claiming process. So that's quite important. Also, overall, the 5th step, and I know we are looking a few weeks away from this, but please put the deadline for submitting your claims process into your mobile phones or any other IT device from now. So it gives you alarm bells pretty much every weekend between now and the 15th of August, because you must make sure that the claim is submitted before 11:59 p.m. on the 15th of August 2021. So it's really important. Please take whatever steps you can to make sure you put in sufficient reminders for you to set some time aside to work on this on a weekly basis. And Anil set out a really good plan how he's planning on approaching this. So maybe take some inspiration from that, or whatever works for you. but please do set some time aside to ensure that you can do this. It's not something you'll be able to leave to the last minute. Is that a fair thing, Anil? That it's not something you'd want to do at the last minute or anything. You need to spend a little bit of time on it regularly, isn't there, to put together a proper claim?
Yeah, it's going to take time to get the evidence. So, you want to be ideally starting as soon as possible.
Of course. Thank you. I think also what we have done at the NPA is, at the moment, you can find the information on the claim form and the drug type determinations on the NHS PSA website. The PSNC briefings are also available. And what we've done on the NPA website is create a hub page on COVID-19 costs claiming process to pull together all the various pieces of information as a starting point so that members have access and they can navigate through all the information pieces together. Looking ahead, in the last week also, we have published update for member, highlighting some of these steps to start preparing together the evidence from now. And that's the best thing is, this first couple of weeks will be the evidence gathering stage almost, before sort of then adding it all up and preparing the final claim form, hopefully ahead of the deadline. We will also continue to look into this because I feel that there is more information required still. So at this point, members should start looking at all the different types of evidence available, as Anil has mentioned, look at the diary logs, look at the RP logs on the PMR system, any other, almost informal pieces of evidence if you don't have formal pieces of evidence. Once we know a little bit more, we are going to look ahead to see what other resource or tools might be necessary or be helpful for members to publish in due course as well. So key steps at the moment, if I can just summarize, is calculate the amount of uplift you received, and that will give you an indication of how much you'll be repaying back in 6 parts from 1st of October. Download a copy of the claims from the NHS PSA website and familiarize yourself with it. Sign up and attend the PSNC workshops on this topic. Start gathering the information and evidence required to complete the claim forms. Put reminders for yourself in IT devices and phones, etc., to ensure that you submit the claims within the deadline. Visit the NPA website at the hub page to have a look at where it's all coming together. And call our advice and support team if you want to discuss any of this through or have a discussion with it. We're happy to help you. We're always here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jasmine, and thank you very much, Anil. I'm conscious that time is precious here on Friday, or if you're watching this on catch up, as I say. What we've tried to do today is just give you a starter for 10, kind of emphasize the importance of getting on top of this as soon as you can. There's much more information to come, as Simon, Anil and Jasmine have all said. Join the PSNC webinar, use our information, and hopefully we can all support you in producing the best outcome here for you and for your business. Thanks very much for joining us today. Look forward to hearing how this progresses.